Hey up! Right, we're back on the Triumph Bonneville bobber today. I've actually shifted the order that I'm doing these videos around this week. I was going to be doing the icon indicators for the front of this bike, but I've got these Pike levers from MOTONE to fit to the bike, which was supposed to be in about 2 videos time. However, last week and the week before, I had several contacts on Messenger on Facebook. I don't go on Facebook much. I don't have time for it. Trying to drag me into some arguments that had erupted in the various Triumph forums. Now, what it all sort of centered around was these levers. As you know, most of the levers that are on the market these days look exactly the same. They're generic levers, made in China. They cost pennies, so all sorts of companies just have their names stamped on them and order them in and make a huge profit on them. And they've become the mainstay because, you know, it's a no-brainer if you're trying to sell parts that you don't manufacture yourself. You can buy them so cheaply from China that yeah, it's just not worth considering developing something yourself unless you're MOTONE Customs. And what this argument erupted around was that there were a certain individual sort of trolling all the different Triumph pages, trying to tell prospective customers that these levers are illegal because they don't have a ball on the end and that your bike will fail its MOT if you fit them. That's incorrect. It's not true at all. The idea of the ball on the end of the levers was simply to stop cold fingers from slipping off the end. In fact, even if your lever's broken off at the end, you will still pass an MOT. So that's totally untrue. And I brought this video forward really just to address that, because I am still getting the odd contact through Messenger. You know, you get people that like to sort of fan the flames with things, and then they get in touch with me and try to get me to join in so they can sit and do whatever gives them pleasure while they watch all the comments and arguments take place. Personally, I don't get involved in it, but I did have a read of them just to see what it was all about, and that's what it all revolved around. These levers, Pike levers, are perfectly legal. They will not stop your bike passing its MOT. That is misinformation. So let's get on with this video. Right, these are a design quite unlike any other design on the market, and that's because, you know, MOTONE Customs could have just bought some generic Chinese levers in like everybody else does and had the name stamped on them, but that's not the way they work. These have been designed from scratch by MOTONE Customs, and I think, to be quite honest, they're about the best levers I've ever seen. In fact, I wish they were available for the Royal Enfields and maybe even the BSA, but yeah, fat chance of talking Sam round into that. These are CNC machined from billet aluminium. They're fully adjustable. They do have a catch on the end to ensure that your fingers don't slip off in operation. That's all they're there for. It's got nothing to do with people impaling themselves on the handlebars when they come off the bikes, as the old wives' tale goes. Yeah, I mean, these are really nice. The look, quality, from what I understand, I've not actually spoken to Sam much about these. I've had them for a while, but from what I understand, they're sold out on the first batch, and I can see why. They're now on the second batch. They're going really well, and you know, they are just fantastic quality compared to anything else that I've seen on the market recently. Now, it's a simple adjustable lever. I'll demonstrate that better once we get it on the bike, because it's difficult when you're holding it in your hands. It's lightweight, it'll be very strong. It's made from 6061 grade aluminium, aircraft aluminium, I do believe. Comes with a brass bush, which is good. I'll just have to see if I've got suitable grease for that. We need something fairly heavy duty. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and fit these to the bobber. The problem with the bobber, and this seems to be a Triumph thing, and actually the bobber isn't the worst of the Bonneville models. The switch gear right and left and the levers are sourced from totally different factories. Now on the bobber, it's not the worst I've seen. They're awful on the T120, or at least on my T120 they were. I don't know whether they've cleaned up their accents then. But they were like chalk and cheese, totally different design, different size. It's not something you focus on initially, but when you've had the bike for a while, you realise the proportions are all different, the design's all different, even the finish is different on these. Even when it comes down to the adjusters, you know, they're a completely different design. I really don't know what Triumph are thinking of when they put, you know, a mess like that together. I can't think off the top of my head of any other manufacturer that does it, but obviously, you know, getting this side made by one manufacturer and that side made by another manufacturer saves them pennies, which increases the profit. But yeah, for me, you know, it's like looking at chalk and cheese. It's always annoyed me with the Bonnevilles. Just let this plane go over. Right, it's going now. Yeah, it's always annoyed me with the Bonnevilles. I mean, if you're selling these bikes as a premium product, the least you can do is make sure that your levers match up, if nothing else. But it is what it is. Anyway, we're going to swap these today. Now, my method of changing these over may differ from other people's idea of how it should be done. This is just the way I've always done it. No one ever taught me how to change levers. It's just something I picked up as a lad when I had to change levers. So we'll get on with it, starting with the front brake lever. Right, the front brake side should be the easiest of the two to do, so I'll start with that. I think this is a 10mm, yeah, 10mm on the bottom, 10mm nut under there. Just undo this screw. It's a locking nut, so it'll be quite stiff initially until you get past the plastic washer or nylon washer. I think we're nearly there. So just withdraw this pin. You will be reusing this pin, so try your best not to lose the pin. Or the nut. And this should just lift out reasonably easy. We do have a, where is it? Oh yeah, so right, so we just need to clean some of this old grease out of here. Give me a minute. Yeah, it's always good to just clean some of the old lubricant out before you put a new part back in. I mean, these don't need a lot of lubrication. I tend to use this white grease. I've had this for years. I can't actually remember what, it's not a lithium grease. It's quite runny when you first put it on. What I've done there is I've just lubricated the mating surface where the lever presses onto the actual master cylinder, just to give it some lubrication. Right, so your right hand lever should have a brake switch there, so just be careful of that. I think if I remember rightly, the dodgy ones on these are always the clutch switch, which activates to tell you that you know, when you've got your side stand down, etc. Just make sure that the bush is pressed in firmly and that it's equal on both sides, otherwise you might have trouble sliding it in. And it just goes in like that. I mean, there's nothing to it really. Well, what I'm going to do is lubricate the pin before I put it back in, because that, again, that's got like grease from 2017 on it. That'll be old stuff. Yeah, it never ceases to disgust me, this you know, constant need for aggression on the internet. You'd think it would have calmed down by now. It's been going on for a lot of years, and it seems to be the Triumph forums that are the worst, if I'm honest. What we'll do is just put a little bit. This stuff is quite runny when you first put it on, but once the gas has escaped, because it's coming from an aerosol can, it's really good stuff. It lasts for years. You can, if you want, just use a normal lithium grease. It won't matter. But I just like to use this because it's very weatherproof. Lithium grease will only last for so long in an application like this. Right. Just got to get that hole lined up for the pin. There we go. We're in. Yeah, these brash bushes are good as well. It stops anything from. It stops wear on your actual lever, and it sort of has self-lubricating properties. I think these are threaded underneath as well, on top of the bolt for some reason. So I'll just put the bolt back on the bottom there, tighten it up. Now I just need to nip that. Sorry, the nut. I just need to nip that nut up. And that's it, it's on. It's a little bit far out from our taste. As you can see, it's very easy to adjust. Just a little bit. It is numbered on here. And the number corresponds to an arrow on there, so that's your. Alright, so number 1 is the furthest out. Number 5 is the closest in. Which is about right for my fingers. So yeah, that's the brake side done. Now I'll put the ignition on and just check that the brake light's operating properly. Yep, that's fine. Happy with that. Let's move over to the difficult one then. Now, first of all, just from your adjuster here, I've just wound that back from that position. Just slacken it off as much as you can. give yourself a bit of slack cable. And make sure that these two grooves, they might not be lined up because I can't actually see from the angle that I'm looking, but I'll make sure they are before I get started, are lined up with that trench there, because you're going to have to release the cable from this. Now this is a totally different fastening system because it's a totally different lever made by a totally different company. Now I've still got these Pike fitted, which are sort of in the way, but that's the problem with these sort of projects. You'd be better off with a ratchet, I think. Again, you've got a 10mm nut underneath, and it's just a matter of undoing that nut. It would have been easier without that Pico in the way, but might make it easy for yourself. Right, so that's the nut off. This pin should just pull out now with a little bit of persuasion. There we go. And then we can manipulate that and take it out, and as you see, that disappeared inside there, but it's not an issue. Yeah, this is just the way I've always done these. Don't know if there's a better way of doing it. I'm always willing to learn, but the thing is, when people are trying to advise you in text on comments, it doesn't always come over very clear. I can't honestly really think of another way of doing it. So yeah, first of all, slacken your cable off to give you as much, as you can see, that's right up to the end there, to give you as much play as possible. It sometimes helps to be able to, depending on how much tension there is there, sort of tease that out through there, just to make it easier to get on, but hopefully we won't have to do that. We should be able to get it into place with it as it is. Now, same thing, just clean off all the surfaces and put a bit of fresh grease on. Actually, this is a calcium based grease, I do believe. It's used a lot in marine applications. The problem is it does take a while to dry, but it's very thick and gloopy once it's dried, so it's an excellent protectant. It's safe on everything. It doesn't affect plastics and nylons and stuff like that, as some greases can, and I just prefer to use it. Now, that's your clutch switch there. We've got to be very careful of that when refitting this. Yeah, that's there for a couple of reasons, really. For a start, you can't start these bikes without pushing the, or I should say, pulling the clutch in. So that switch is what lets the engine know that it's okay to start. So if you snap that, yeah, you could have a few problems. You don't need much of this stuff. Right, so let's get the lever. Well, these are always quite tight and awkward to fit. It's just the nature of the beast. So just engage the barrel of your cable into there. I've done that the wrong way around. What a knob. Right, so yeah, so you have to have it oriented that way. Like that. And then you've got to be careful of this. Just push that switch in with your thumb as you re-engage. I've just realised I've dropped the bush. Yeah, it's quite a loose fit on this side. I mean, these are meant to have sort of free play in them, so just watch that, don't do what I did. So, make sure you've got that switch in place, which I think we're okay. No, we're not. There we go. And we're ready to put the pin back in. As I say, I pre-lubed this pin. And that's back in. So, right, we'll readjust the tension on there again in a minute. I'll get a bit of rag from my fingers. And then we can go ahead. Yeah, I mean, if there's an easier way of doing this, by all means, let me know. It's just the way I've always done it, and these can be a little bit difficult because the tension's on the actual cable themselves, but yeah, as far as I'm concerned, that's just the nature of the beast. Right. Tight. Happy with that. And again, got exactly the same situation here. You just take the pressure off, spin it around to the number you want, which I can't see in this light. There it is. And that's your lowest setting. So number 5 is your closest setting into the handlebar, number 1 is the furthest away, and it's just a matter of adjusting it to suit you. Now, Sam told me that some people had difficulty fitting one of these. I can't remember which one it was that he said now, but I think that's got to be the easiest lever fitting I've ever done. Normally you do struggle with this one, and I don't know what the difference is, but I found that very easy, if I'm honest. So yeah, that's all there is to it. I mean, these are oh, actually I better adjust this lever. So we're taking all the or as much too tight. we took as much tension off the cable as we could. That's about right. I mean, always, if you can, it's not always possible, but those two grooves in these fittings, always if you can, have it facing down. Unfortunately, depending on the tension, it's not always possible to do that. In an ideal world, you should have those grooves downwards, and it's simply rainwater and water when you're washing the bike, etc. There's a possibility of that water getting into the cable, which obviously isn't a good idea, although most of these cables are coated inside the sleeve, so it shouldn't be an issue. And the amount of water that can actually get down there is negligible anyway, but it is good practice, if you can, to at least have these pointing down in some way. I mean, the slack's about right on that. It varies from bike to bike. It's usually about 2 to 4 millimeters, which, yeah, it's maybe a little bit more than 4 millimeters. So we'll just, yeah, that's about right. And then just lock it off with that. So yeah, I mean, if you can, but as you see there, I would have altered it to the sort of optimal place. The lever is, you know, the groove is exposed, and I know what people are saying about always trying to keep these to the bottom, and it is good practice if you can, but if it means not being able to adjust your cable properly, you just can't do it. It's as simple as that. Yeah, so that was what, a 10-minute installation. Piece of cake, really. From what Sam was saying, that some people had struggled with these, I was expecting it to be a bit of a battle, and it's refreshing that it wasn't. But, you know, these levers are a one-off, obviously. There will be a 12% discount code in the video description down below, for those of you that want to make any purchase on MOTONE's website, not just a purchase of these levers. It applies to all their products, and I'll leave a link for these Pike levers in the video description. I believe the name derived from some resemblance to the fish, I'm not sure. In which case, yes, it's a good name, I like that. He always comes out with some good names, does Sam, for his products, which is nice to see, rather than just having a sort of a descriptive name, which is what most manufacturers and sellers do. You know, they're a very classy, I wouldn't say classic because I think they're quite modern, but they are a very classy lever. There's nothing quite like these on the market that I'm aware of. You know, they all look the same, they all have that same generic look about them, which, you know, it doesn't matter who you buy them from, they all look the same, they're just maybe different colours and slightly different finishes on them, and that's it. But it's taken away that asymmetry that we had with the original levers. I mean, I really don't know how Triumph get away with that, to be honest, because it's usually the first thing I notice about their bikes is the fact that, you know, the levers are nothing like each other. And I noticed that on the, I mean, they may have been pre-production bikes, but at the NEC last year, you know, they were like, they'd just both been taken off two random bikes on the new 400s, and you've got to wonder what Triumph are thinking when they do that. But I've got no idea what these cost. I'll leave a link to them in the video description down below. I'm presuming they've still got some in stock, because I know the first lot shifted really quickly from what Sam said. And the second batch, because they'd had to sort of get it through quickly, it wasn't a full batch. So yeah, I don't know what the situation is on stock. Now these definitely fit the bobber, obviously. I would imagine they fit the Speedmaster. I've not actually researched it to see what other models these fit in the Bonneville range, because I don't know whether these are standard or not on the other Bonneville models. Best bet is, as I say, I'll leave a link, and I'm sure MOTONE will have a full list of suitable models on the listing for these levers. But yeah, I mean, these stand apart from everything else. They're black anodized. I don't know whether they're going to be doing a silver version. They're really well made. There's nothing like this on the market. So Sam, if you happen to watch this video, could you do some for the BSA and the Royal Enfields, please? Once again, thank you so much for taking the time to watch this and my other videos. I really do appreciate it. I'd also appreciate it if you would leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you're not already a subscriber. It does sort of stimulate the algorithm and helps the channel rise. Now, there are other ways you can help me out via my Patreon page or via the super thanks button down below. I like to think of those as sort of tipping jars. You know, if you appreciate my content and you'd like to leave me a tip for the effort that I put in, that's what they're there for. If you don't want to leave me a tip, no need to bother. It's good either way. I am, of course, going to be back next week. So until then, please ride safely and I'll see you soon.